I didn't mean to see anything." The words came out before I could stop them. They sounded weak, pathetic even, and the worst part was no one in the room believed me. Two security guards held my arms tight enough that my shoulders hurt. My toolbox had fallen on the marble floor beside us. A screwdriver rolled slowly across the polished surface like it had all the time in the world. I kept my eyes down, because the woman standing in front of me wasn't just any employee. She was Vivien Hail, owner of the company, Billionaire. And the one person you never, ever embarrassed in this building. Her assistant looked furious. Security looked ready to throw me out the window, but Vivien Hail looked at me like she was solving a puzzle. Cold, calm, careful. "You walked into my office without knocking," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but somehow it carried across the entire floor. I had a work order," I said quickly. "The thermostat upstairs wasn't responding and—" While I was changing. The words landed like a hammer. I felt every pair of eyes in the hallway turn toward me. My face burned. "I didn't know anyone was inside," I said. "The system said the office was empty." Her assistant scoffed. "Of course it did," the woman muttered. "Convenient." I wanted to disappear, not because I was guilty, but because I knew exactly how this looked. A maintenance worker, walking into the billionaire CEO's private office, while she was changing clothes. Yeah. Nobody was going to believe that was an accident. Vivien crossed her arms. She was wearing a blazer now, but I knew I had walked in about 5 seconds before she finished putting it on. 5 seconds that had just destroyed my life. "You saw something you weren't supposed to see," she said. I swallowed. "Yes." "Security," her assistant snapped. "Call HR." My stomach dropped. HR meant termination. Termination meant rent problems. Rent problems meant my daughter and I looking for a new place again. I closed my eyes for a second, just 1 second, then I opened them and looked straight at Vivien. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. The hallway went silent because I wasn't begging. I wasn't making excuses. I was just telling the truth. "I wasn't trying to look," I continued. I turned around the moment I realized someone was there. No one said anything. Then Vivien tilted her head slightly, like she was studying me. "You didn't stare," she said. The assistant frowned. "Vivien." "I asked him a question earlier," Vivien continued calmly, "and he answered while facing the wall." Now everyone looked confused, including me. "I noticed that," she added. The assistant crossed her arms. "That doesn't change the situation." Vivien didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped closer to me, close enough that I could smell her perfume, something subtle, expensive. She looked directly into my eyes. "You have a daughter," she said. My heart skipped. "How do you?" "Your employee file." "Right, of course, the building kept records." "Leela," she said, 7 years old." I nodded slowly. "Yes." She looked at me for another long moment. Then she said something that made the entire hallway freeze. "Fire him." My chest tightened. Security loosened their grip slightly, assuming the situation was finished. But Vivien hadn't finished speaking. "Effective immediately," she added. The assistant smirked like she had just won something. My throat felt dry. I had expected this. Still, hearing it out loud hurt more than I thought it would. I bent down slowly and picked up my toolbox. One of the guards stepped back. No one stopped me. No one said anything, because in buildings like this, maintenance workers disappear quietly. I turned toward the elevator, trying to figure out how I was going to explain this to Leela. Then Vivien's voice stopped me. "Wait." The word echoed down the hallway. I turned. Her expression hadn't changed. Still calm, still unreadable. But something about the way she looked at me now felt different, almost thoughtful. "You understand," she said slowly, "that if anyone asks about what happened in my office today—" I nodded immediately. "I'll say nothing." She studied me again. "Nothing at all." "Nothing." She watched me for another few seconds. Then she said quietly, "Good." And for the first time since this disaster started, a strange feeling crept into my chest, because the way she said that word didn't sound like someone who had just ruined my life. It sounded like someone who had started something, something I didn't understand yet, but I would soon. And when I finally learned the truth behind what Vivien Hail had just done, I realized that getting fired today was only the beginning, because the next thing she said to me would destroy my reputation and somehow save my life. The elevator doors closed, and just like that my job was gone. I stared at my reflection in the brushed steel wall, grease on my sleeve, dust on my boots. The same uniform I'd worn every day for 3 years. 3 years of fixing lights, replacing filters, repairing door sensors. 3 years of trying to build something stable for my daughter, all gone in 5 seconds. The elevator reached the ground floor with a soft ding. No one looked at me as I walked through the lobby. That's the thing about buildings like this. The people who run them are invisible until they make a mistake. Then suddenly everyone sees them. Outside, the winter air hit my face. Cold, sharp, real. I sat on the concrete steps beside the service entrance and opened my phone. My last paycheck would cover 2 weeks of rent, maybe 3 if I skipped groceries. I rubbed my face. Leela's school ended in 2 hours. She'd ask the same question she asked every day. How was work, Dad? I didn't have an answer for that anymore. The door behind me opened. I expected another maintenance guy coming out for a smoke break. Instead, a familiar voice said, "You left your badge." I turned. Vivien Hail stood in the doorway, the billionaire CEO, the woman who had just fired me. She held my employee badge between 2 fingers, the same calm expression on her face. I stood slowly. "You didn't have to bring that down yourself," I said. "I know." She handed it to me. Our fingers didn't touch. Then she leaned against the wall beside the door, like she had nowhere else to be. "That really was an accident, wasn't it?" she asked. I blinked. "Yes." "You didn't know I was in the office?" "No." "And when you realized?" I turned around immediately. She nodded slightly. I noticed. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then she said something strange. "You didn't defend yourself very hard." I shrugged. People with my job usually lose arguments with people with yours. That earned the faintest hint of a smile. Not a big one, just enough to soften the edge of her face. "You're not wrong," she said. I picked up my toolbox. "Well, thanks for bringing the badge down." I started walking toward the parking lot. "Ethan." I stopped. I hadn't told her my name. Slowly I turned back. "Yes." Vivien looked toward the busy street beyond the gates, cars passing, snow melting along the curb. Then she said quietly, "Something is going to happen later today." My stomach tightened. "What kind of something?" "The kind that makes headlines." That got my attention. "I don't understand." She looked back at me. "Someone is going to accuse you of entering my office intentionally." My chest went cold. "What?" "The company's legal department," she continued calmly. "They will say you violated executive privacy." "That's not true." "I know." "Then why would they?" "Because it protects the company." I stared at her. "You just fired me." "Yes." "And now your lawyers are going to say I did something worse." She didn't answer right away. Instead she asked, "How old is your daughter?" 7. "What's her name?" "Leela." Vivien looked down for a moment. Then she said something that made absolutely no sense. "Good." I frowned. "How is any of this good?" She stepped closer, not threatening, just close enough that I had to look directly at her. "You're about to be accused of something," she said quietly, "and I need you not to fight it." I stared at her like she'd lost her mind. "You want me to just accept it?" "Yes." "That could ruin my reputation." "Yes." "I'll never get another job in building maintenance again." "Probably not." Anger flared in my chest. Then why would I agree to that? For the first time since this whole disaster started. Vivien's expression changed, just slightly. Not cold, not distant, something closer to serious. Because the man who actually tried to get into my office today, she said quietly, is someone powerful enough to destroy you completely if his name becomes involved. The air between us went still. What are you talking about? A board member, she said. Someone who believes this company belongs to him. And what does that have to do with me? You walked into the office 5 minutes before he tried. My brain struggled to catch up. He tried to break in. Yes. And security didn't see him. Not yet. I felt my stomach drop. You're telling me someone tried to spy on you? Yes. And somehow this ends with me being blamed. Yes. I shook my head slowly. That's insane. Vivien looked straight into my eyes. If his name appears in this situation, Ethan, he will come after anyone involved. Meaning me? Yes. I ran a hand through my hair. So the solution is to destroy my reputation instead. Her voice softened slightly. Temporary damage. I laughed bitterly. There's no such thing. She studied me again. Then she asked quietly, do you trust your instincts about people? I hesitated, usually. Then use them now. She held my gaze, steady, unflinching. I'm not ruining your life, she said. I'm protecting it. I didn't know whether to believe her, but something about the way she said it didn't feel like a lie. Still, I asked the only question that mattered. What happens to me after the accusation? Vivien looked toward the skyline again. Then she said, that depends on whether you believe me. I felt the weight of the moment settle in my chest, because whatever decision I made next would decide everything, my future, my daughter's stability, my reputation, and maybe even my safety. I looked back at the billionaire CEO who had just fired me. Then I asked quietly, what exactly are you planning? Vivien Hail didn't answer immediately, but when she finally spoke, her words changed everything. First, she said calmly, they're going to destroy your name. By the time I picked Leela up from school that afternoon, the story was already online. Not the real story. The version the company wanted people to see. My phone buzzed the moment I stepped into the parking lot. 3 messages from coworkers, 2 missed calls from my supervisor, and 1 notification from a news app. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. Maintenance worker fired after entering CEO's private office without authorization. My stomach dropped. I tapped the article. There it was, my name, Ethan Rowe, 34, single father, former maintenance employee. The story didn't say I'd done anything criminal, but it didn't have to. The implication did the work. Violation of privacy, unauthorized entry, termination effective immediately. That was enough to make sure no building manager in the city would ever hire me again. I locked my phone and sat in the car for a minute. Just breathing, then the passenger door opened. Hi, Dad. Leela climbed into the seat with her backpack bouncing behind her. Her hair was messy from recess. Her coat zipper was halfway up like she'd gotten impatient with it. Hi, Peanut, I said. She smiled. Then she noticed my face. You look weird. Kids always say exactly what they think. Just a long day, I said. She tilted her head. You got fired again. The words hit harder than anything I'd read online. I blinked. How did you? You always make that face when jobs go away. She said it matter-of-factly, not accusing, just observant, 7 years old, and already too familiar with instability. I forced a small smile. It'll be okay. She studied me for another second, then she nodded once. Okay. That was it, no panic. No crying, just trust. And that trust hurt more than anything, because I didn't know if I deserved it. That evening I was sitting at the small kitchen table in our apartment when my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something in my gut told me not to. Hello. Ethan. Vivien's voice, calm, controlled like always. You've seen the article, she said. Yes. I'm sorry about the wording. I let out a tired laugh. The wording. Yes. That article basically says I'm a creep. It says you violated executive privacy. Same difference. There was a brief silence, then she said quietly, "The board member I told you about has already contacted legal." My chest tightened, meaning he believes the situation is being handled. And if he believed otherwise, he would start asking questions. I leaned back in my chair. So this is the part where my reputation burns. Yes. And you're still telling me this is protecting me? Yes. I rubbed my forehead, hard to see how. Her voice softened slightly. Have you ever heard of Robert Calder? The name rang a faint bell. Real estate investor. Board member. Right now I remembered. The guy had been in business magazines for years. Huge influence. Old money. Calder believes the company should be his, Vivien continued. He's been looking for leverage against me. And spying on you in your office would help with that. Yes. So if he got caught trying to break in, he would claim he had permission. And blame me. Yes. I stared at the wall. So you made sure he had a different story to focus on? Yes. For a moment the apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. Then I said something I hadn't expected to say. You didn't have to come outside earlier. Vivien didn't answer immediately. No, she admitted, I didn't. So why did you? Another pause, longer this time. Then she said something unexpected. Because when you walked into that office this morning, you turned around. I frowned, yeah. Most men wouldn't. The words landed softly, but they carried weight. And when security grabbed you, she continued, you didn't shout or accuse or panic. What good would that have done? It showed me something about you. I didn't know what to say to that. So I stayed quiet, then a small voice appeared behind me. Dad. I turned. Leela stood in the hallway holding something, a piece of paper. Who's that? She asked. A work person. She walked over and climbed into the chair beside me. Then she held up the paper. It was a drawing, crayon, stick figures, one big, one small. The big one had messy hair. The small one had a purple backpack. You made this today? I asked. She nodded proudly. It's us. I smiled despite everything. It's perfect. Vivien's voice came through the phone. That's your daughter. Yes. Another pause. Then Vivien said quietly, Ethan, tomorrow things are going to get worse. I looked at Leela's drawing. How much worse? The board will push for a public statement. And that means you will be blamed directly. I closed my eyes. Great. But after that, she continued, I can finally move. Move how? For weeks Calder has been setting traps inside the company. And tomorrow he will believe he's safe. My stomach twisted, and when he believes that, Vivien's voice became very calm. Then I'll expose him. I opened my eyes slowly, and what happens to me after that? The line went quiet, long enough that I wondered if she'd hung up. Then she said something I didn't expect. When this is over, she said quietly, I'm going to fix what I broke. I looked at Leela sitting beside me, still holding her drawing, still trusting me, and suddenly I realized something. Vivien Hail wasn't just planning to destroy a corrupt board member. She was preparing to change my entire life, whether I wanted that or not, because tomorrow, my name would become the center of a scandal, and when the truth finally came out, everyone in the city would know who Ethan Rowe really was. The next morning started quietly, too quietly. The kind of quiet that makes you feel like something big is about to happen. I dropped Leela off at school at 8:15. She hugged me before getting out of the car, a long hug. The kind kids give when they feel something is wrong but can't explain it. You'll pick me up later, she asked. Of course. You promise? I nodded. I always promise things I can keep. She studied my face for a moment, Then she smiled, "Okay," and ran inside. I sat in the car for another minute before starting the engine, because promises like that suddenly felt heavier. At 9:30, my phone started buzzing again. News alerts, emails, messages from numbers I didn't recognize. The company had released a statement. I opened it. The company confirms that former maintenance employee Ethan Rowe deliberately entered a restricted executive area, violating company policy and professional conduct standards. Deliberately. That word hit like a punch. Then the article continued. The company takes executive safety and privacy extremely seriously. Translation: blame the maintenance guy. My chest felt tight. Vivien had warned me, but seeing it in writing still hurt. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "Hello. Turn on channel 7. Vivien. I grabbed the remote and switched on the small TV in my living room. The news anchor appeared instantly. Breaking developments at Hail Industries this morning. My stomach dropped. CEO Vivien Hail has called an emergency press conference regarding internal misconduct allegations. The camera cut to the company headquarters. A podium, reporters everywhere. Vivien stepped into frame. Calm, controlled, just like yesterday, except this time. Her eyes were different, focused, sharp, like someone about to detonate a bomb. "Good morning," she said. Flashes exploded from cameras. For the past 24 hours, a narrative has circulated regarding a former employee, Ethan Rowe. Hearing my name on live television felt surreal. Vivien continued. "That narrative is false." The room erupted instantly, reporters shouting questions. Vivien raised one hand. The noise stopped. "The truth," she said calmly, "is that yesterday someone attempted to access my private office illegally." The screen behind her lit up. Security footage appeared. My breath caught. A man stood outside her office door, trying to override the lock. The timestamp read 5 minutes after I had entered the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," Vivien continued, "this individual is Robert Calder." The room exploded, reporters shouting, cameras flashing, because Robert Calder wasn't just a board member. He was one of the most powerful investors in the state. Vivien didn't blink. "For months, Mr. Calder has attempted to gain unauthorized access to company information," she said. "Yesterday, he escalated that behavior." Another video appeared. Calder arguing with security in the hallway, trying to push past them. The reporters went wild. "Why accuse Ethan Rowe then?" Someone shouted. Vivien looked straight into the cameras, and for the first time since this whole thing started. Her voice softened. "Because Mr. Rowe happened to walk into my office minutes before Mr. Calder arrived." She paused, and I knew Mr. Calder would try to shift blame to the first available target. The room fell quiet. "So I gave him one," she said. My heart pounded. "You destroyed his reputation," another reporter said. Vivien nodded once. "Yes." The honesty shocked everyone. "And today," she continued, "I am correcting that mistake." She stepped away from the podium. Then she said something I never expected to hear. "Ethan Rowe is a good man." The words hit me like electricity. "He is a father who works 2 jobs to support his daughter," she continued. "He turned away immediately when he realized I was changing. He accepted blame he did not deserve." Her voice lowered slightly, "and he did it without asking for anything in return." The room stayed silent. Then Vivien said the words that changed everything. "People like Ethan Rowe are the reason companies like mine exist." Another pause. "And today I am offering him a new position." My brain froze. "A position?" The reporter sounded confused. "Yes," Vivien said calmly, "Director of Facilities Operations." My jaw dropped. That was 3 levels above my old job, more money, more responsibility, a career, not just maintenance work. "And if he chooses to accept," she finished, "the company will also establish a scholarship fund for his daughter's future education." The room exploded again. I sat there on my couch, speechless. My phone buzzed. Vivien again. "Are you watching?" she asked. "Yes." "What do you think?" I stared at the television, at the reporters surrounding her, at the woman who had just destroyed a billionaire board member on live TV. Then I asked the question that had been bothering me since yesterday. "You didn't have to do any of this." Her answer came quietly. "Yes, I did." "Why?" The line stayed silent for a moment. Then she said something simple. "Because when you walked into that office, you chose respect over opportunity." I frowned. "What opportunity?" "What?" "You could have looked," she said. "You could have used that moment for leverage." I hadn't even thought about that, but you didn't. "No," I said. I turned around. "Yes." Her voice softened again. "And people like that are rare." I looked down at Leela's drawing on the table, the crayon stick figures. "Are you accepting the job?" Vivien asked. I exhaled slowly. "I have one condition." "No." "You never ruin my life again." For the first time since I met her. Vivien laughed, a real laugh. "I'll try not to." That afternoon I picked Leela up from school. She climbed into the car like usual. Then she looked at my face. "You look weird again." I laughed. "Good weird this time." She tilted her head. "What happened?" I handed her my phone. The news article was already everywhere. She read the headline slowly. Then her eyes widened. "You're on TV." "Apparently." She stared at me. Then she smiled. "Does this mean we don't have to move again?" My throat tightened. "No," I said. "It means we finally get to stay." She leaned over and hugged me, tight, and in that moment, I realized something important. Vivien Hail might have changed my career. She might have saved my reputation. But the real thing that saved my life was the small person sitting beside me, because in the end, the most powerful thing in the world isn't money. It's having someone who believes in you completely. And sometimes, that's enough to change everything.